Hello, friends. Do you ever consider what are your superpowers? Your superpowers as it relates to embodying your sovereignty. I think that's such a big thing for most of us that we have been so programmed to believe that it's not safe to be sovereign. And if you look around the world, for at least 2,000 years, we can find plenty of proof that this is so. It's not safe to be sovereign. Safety is, quote unquote, found in following others. And I don't know if anybody has been able to get through life without falling into those traps. But what happens is that when we give up our own sovereignty consciously or unconsciously, mostly unconsciously, something happens. There's a contraction. I would say the real true safety is only inside our own sovereignty, in our own I am presence, in our own soul connection. That's where we find safety and a lot more fulfillment, love, peace. But right now, apparently, it's about safety. And when we leave our sovereignty, our core, our divine essence, it's not safe anymore, is it? When we live out in the world, in the matrix, as I like to say, that's our mind. When we live there, there is no safety. There is duality. So there might be times where we feel safe, but it will always flip back and forth between feeling safe and between feeling unsafe, feeling attacked, where we need to protect ourselves. So on our journey back home here, there's all these layers, right, of protection, of um, resistance. Because if and when we give up our sovereignty and then give our power to whomever outside of ourselves, there is immediately going to be a place where we literally don't feel safe because we never know what this other, this outer is going to do to us. So automatically living in the matrix, we have a barrier, a protective layer, a defensive armor that is always on, except for the moments where we may, be in a situation with like-hearted people, with, maybe a safe family, a partner, or, just in a deep, beautiful meditation connecting to our true essence. Then there is a sense of safety because then we can actually lean back into our sovereignty because we're safe. There's nothing that can happen there. But as soon as we leave it, right, there's this contraction again. And that's where all of us, I would say, maybe one or two exceptions that I don't know who would be, but that's how I experience my life and everybody around me, that we walk around with this protective layer, always ready to run, to fight, flight, freeze. It's like the nervous system is just so programmed and wired to always be on alert. And of course, we can cover that fear that's in there. And remember, fear, right? That is the fuel of the matrix. There's a video I did on that. So it's remembering that when we are in fear, when we do not feel safe, it is because we are connected with the matrix, and therefore we are disconnected from our soul, where safety is. So maybe this is a nice little map we can use, and see, okay, am I afraid? Am I protecting myself? Oh, then I'm in a matrix. Do I feel like open and soft, gentle, safe, trusting? Oh, I'm connected in here. So it's a back and forth. Most people live here all the time. A lot of us who've done a lot of inner work, we live here a lot of time, and we still go back and forth because we still live in the matrix, where everything we engage in our life is connected to the matrix. So that will be there as a, reminder maybe that this is not who we are, but it's everywhere. It's hard to avoid it unless we go into a cave, and sit there 24/7 and have our needs, meals delivered or something. But, anything can happen at any time in this dimension, in this third dimension, non-dual dimension matrix. Earthquakes, floods, fires. If you sit in a cave somewhere, who knows? A big boulder might come down on you. Who knows? Anything in this dimension is kind of it's so dual that we always need to protect ourselves. So we never feel safe. And this is something we can start meeting in ourselves. Because what I wanted to talk about a little bit about, what are your superpowers? Well, my superpowers are not when I'm in defense, protecting myself, expecting bad things to happen. I'm not in my superpower. I have given away my superpower and I'm in the matrix. Where I find my superpowers come more alive is when I allow myself to soften into myself, into the protective layers that I have built around me and against the matrix. But all that is still matrix. It's just, trying to create a safe place in the matrix, which we can do to a certain extent. Uh, the way the world is, I don't know where there's going to be much safety soon because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. The matrix is just like, because it knows that its time is up. So it's making its last, attempts to to get the emotions out of us that keeps it alive. I have talked about that it is our fearful emotions that it feeds on, and it's like where it gets its nourishment and sustenance. So when we learn to be present with that, or first, let's say, become really aware of it, and then bring a softening and a gentleness to the part of us that is actually afraid. And what I'm talking about right now, of course, is self-love. Self-love, oh my God, I've talked about this and written about this for so many years. And it is as important and alive as ever. And more people are talking about it. I remember when I started, talking about self-love and called myself a self-love mentor. It was like, ooh, people were like, what? What are you talking about? But it was just, like everything here, it just came through. So I just wrote the book about, being kind to yourself, learning how to. I'll put the link in the description if you want to check it out. But the superpower we have is really the self-love, to meet the parts of us that have been so afraid for so long, and make that a priority, make that a place to really put our attention. I mean, make it alive in us, to just be willing to soften to be softer to ourselves, to help soften the parts inside that we have been contracting around and trying to get rid of, or whatever it is, whatever way that we have tightened and contracted around these places. Let's see, is there a way we can soften around that and be more gentle and be more kind to ourselves or to these parts? And I've noted in myself that when some of these parts show up, and I've been lately, have been and still am going through a huge letting go of some old structures that have nothing to do with me. So as I'm moving through that, and just kind of, it's like there is some kind of a separation happening where I can start seeing more like, oh, this is me without this thing that has caused, fear and whatnot. I've shared this, there's been a lot of fear in the beginning to just, speak, have a YouTube channel. Is it okay? Is it safe to just be myself? And it turns out it's actually pretty safe. I have not seen any tomatoes coming through the screen yet, so maybe that's a good sign. But it's just been learning to soften, really consciously soften around these places and seeing, watching how these structures that I'm in the process of softening around and putting down because they're not mine. I talked about that very recently, that, maybe the burdens that we carry are not ours. So in that process, when you do that, you will experience very naturally, a self-love, a compassion, a gentleness towards that part that has been carrying this load, which was not ours. So when that separation starts happening, and that, there's some work involved to just keep reminding ourselves, like, oh no, that's right, this is not mine. And when we do it in a gentle way, but also in a firm way, it's like, oh no, that we're done with. We don't do that anymore. That's not mine. And then eventually, when there is a little more distance, then there might just be this really compassion, a sweet compassion for how long we have carried this unconsciously. We knew it was there, but we didn't really know we were carrying it and it wasn't ours. So once that there's enough space, then there's a natural compassion and self-love for that part of us that has been going through so much hardship and so much fear and so much, need to protect ourselves. And in that, there is just a beautiful natural arising of softness, of love for that part. And this love that helps soften it even more, what we're letting go of. So it's kind of can we call it a self-fulfilling prophecy of healing and liberation. Once we start the process of realizing that we are not whatever we have identified with in the matrix, and it's okay to start letting it go without bypassing. We do it the way where it becomes whole by love, allowing the love that we are to fill those spaces without identifying them, without trying to fix them, but just like being here and just allowing this that we're not to be here. And it just naturally unravels itself. And then this love for self may arise. I'm not saying that's going to happen for everyone, but it might. I see it often with clients that there's just this compassion. It's like, oh my God, what have I gone through? My goodness. And it's incredibly sweet. And there's a deep softening that happens. And in that softening, there's a deeper connection to who we truly are. And in that, we will we will automatically feel this longing to connect deeper with that. It's not something you have to, put in your schedule every day, I have to connect with who I am. It is just there as a longing because you're more in touch with it now that you don't have this, whatever you carried. So you have more access to this. And then it's so sweet, it's so soft, and it's so gentle. And you can feel it, and you can just like, oh my God, this is so much better than this, protection, this fear. So there is a natural moving deeper into this just just because of the longing, just because you want it, and you're now honoring it because this thing is not getting in your way. So now you can stay there, and then you can make that a daily practice to really practice, a really joyful interaction with your true self because it's so precious. I have cats. It's like, my God, it's like hanging out with your favorite pet every day, which is you. It's like, oh, this is so sweet. I just want to hang out with that. I don't know if the cat or pet metaphor works, but it might work for some of you, or if you have something else. It's something that becomes really precious to you, and you don't want to let anything get in the way of you connecting with that because it's too precious. It's just too precious. It's like, I love myself too much to engage in that stuff again that is scary. I just want to stay here. So you see the step from the matrix in here, it becomes easier the more we do this work of softening and letting go. And then this becomes more available. And it's so attractive. It's like you don't want anything else. And so you give that to yourself and you let yourself feed that part and you let yourself be fed by this sweetness that you long for. And these, to me, my friends, these are your superpowers. The superpowers of self love, of softening, of longing, of being gentle with yourself. These are our superpowers. It's not, being out there with your sword or anything. The superpower is that gentle sweetness that is just here, and it's available for us at any moment to connect back with that. Yes. If you want to, this coming Tuesday, in a couple of days, next week, we have our next online gathering called Feel Your Deepest Longing, Find Your Spiritual Calling. And this is what we spend time with, this sweet longing inside, because we want to connect more with it. It's calling us home. We don't need to protect ourselves from it. And we have, we have like turned away from it and gone out there into the fear world. But once you start connecting with it and start feeling it, you don't want to leave it anymore. It's just too beautiful and too precious to leave. So that's what we'll, play around with a little bit on Tuesday, help you, deepen into that. And it would be wonderful if you would join me, and then we will be more interacting, except just me sitting here in front of the camera. Okay, my friends, I hope to see you soon. Have a great day.